every now and then, and I feel like Donald Trump has been he's been largely removed from the kind of high profile position that he occupied for, you know, basically his whole life, but particularly in the realm of politics from, say, like 2016 to 2020. You know, he's not on Twitter, although technically I guess he could be, but maybe he's contractually obligated not to use his Twitter. He's not, you know, his rallies aren't covered on television every day like they used to be. But he's still there, just doesn't quite have the megaphone that he used to have. And I personally think Donald Trump is a much weaker political force than he was in 2016, or certainly when he was the president. I think he doesn't have the same magic. I think his enormous failures during the COVID regime are very, very challenging to make up for, especially, as we've said before on the show, especially when your whole thing is like, bottom line, I win, you know, and then your final year in office is the biggest L in modern American history. It's just, it's hard to rectify that, or reconcile that. It's very hard to be the guy bragging about creating the vaccines when pretty much your entire base has, you know, turned on the whole vaccine regime. But every now and then you do see a moment where you realize, like, kind of the political brilliance that Donald Trump has. And quite often it's hard to even call it political brilliance. It's almost just, as I've said before, it's almost like there are this winning hand that no one in the establishment wants to play. And Donald Trump's just like, these cards are just laying on the floor, but these are pocket aces. I'll play pocket aces. Those are really good hands. It's like securing the border. It's just such a like common sense thing that like the vast majority of Americans want. It's like an unbelievable political winner. And you have, you know, the left flirting with basically like de facto open borders. And then you have, you know, like even the Republicans like Jeb Bush would be like, well, they come here for compassion because they're such great people and blah, blah, blah. And then Trump's like, build a wall. And everyone's like, I like that guy. It's just like no one else is willing to play this hand, and he's willing to play this thing that's very politically popular. So in a move of political brilliance, Joe Biden makes this trip out to Eastern Europe, pops by the war zone in Ukraine, and then over to Poland and all this stuff, rallying support, promising another $500 million or whatever for Ukraine. And he's out there talking about how we're gonna take care of your Social Security or whatever they call it out there in Ukraine, their pensions and shit like that. And Donald Trump just goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Ohio. I'm going to go there and start handing out things. And it's just so obvious what it, like if you were, you know, and okay, Ron DeSantis, I mean, he's not officially running for president yet, but there's a lot of speculation of that. He's kind of not in a position where he can do things like that. When you're the governor of Florida, you can't just go to Ohio and start doing things for their people. You're, in a way, kind of committing the same crime that Biden is, you know what I mean, by going to Ohio. But Trump's like, I'm free to do this. I got money in the bank. I'm just going to fly there and buy a bunch of shit and hand it out to people. It's a really smart move that I think is much like playing the immigration card. It's just such a winning hand to play. Like, okay, yeah. While Joe Biden is off worried about doing things for the Ukrainians, I'm worried about doing things for Americans. It fits right into his whole America First brand. I don't know what else to say about it other than it's just a fucking brilliant move by Donald Trump.
Couldn't agree more. And it's amazing how many losses he's taken prior to this. You got COVID, you got January 6th, you've got claiming he won an election, not getting his signature agenda of a wall. But this one was literally just right there, and he actually capitalized well.
Yeah. Now, of course, what was pretty funny about this was the media reaction to it. Man, it's fun watching these people melt down. So first I want to play as Tom Elliott, who's a great Twitter follow. He posted a bunch of these clips. I was like, oh man, I really want to like capture some of this stuff I've seen. And then of course he has it right there. So let's play first. This was a great little supercut that he put out. That's what he calls them when he mashes these media clips together. This was more a taste of the corporate press reaction to Joe Biden going over to Ukraine.
Joe Biden has put solidarity ahead of his own personal safety.
Air raid sirens and no real guarantee of security.
As air raid sirens blared.
This was incredibly dramatic, Andrea. It was historic as well.
Historic, timely, and brave.
The first American president to go to a war zone with no U.S. military presence for security on the ground.
American presidents have made dramatic trips before, Nixon to China, Kennedy, Reagan to the Berlin Wall, and presidents have visited U.S. troops in war zones, but never like this.
To find a day of this kind of presidential bravery in a war zone, you've got to go all the way back to 1864.
With Biden's trip to Europe, he is welcomed as not only frankly the savior of Ukraine, but also the savior of Europe as a whole.
It's historic. It's the first time that a U.S. president has gone into an active war zone that the U.S. military does not have control over.
And against all odds, it was successful.
The continuing threat quite literally sounding all around the two leaders.
The skies here are not safe. And in fact, an air raid siren went off while President Biden was here.
Seeing the American president there walking the streets of Kyiv while air raid sirens literally sounded in that moment about possible incoming fire from Russia.
The wail of an air raid siren.
Air raid sirens wailing in the background.
Seemingly undeterred by an air raid siren.
Undeterred by the sound of air sirens.
President Biden's ability with his aviators on to walk through in broad daylight in Kyiv.
The swagger of this trip, not just the execution, the secrecy, but the swagger of it on display.
All right, there you go. I don't even know. Do you need to add anything to it? This is as we flirt with a nuclear confrontation. This is what the corporate press is giving you. Just lapdogs, and it's so preposterous. All of it, just so ridiculous. You see the swagger, Rob. When you see Joe Biden walk, the only thought a normal person has in their head is he is not very good at walking.
It's more of a shuffle. It's more of an old man shuffle.
But I don't care what type of fucking sunglasses you throw on him or what sirens you have going off in the back. We're all looking at the same picture, but they're all just, oh my God, this is amazing. So here's the posture. And this is what's so great about what Trump did here. Here's the posture of the corporate press. This is amazing. This is the greatest trip ever. This is like Churchill and fucking, this is just I don't know. You might have to go back to 1802 to find something as terrific and brave as this. Just amazing. Put unity over his own safety, just courage and swagger and the greatest thing ever. And then Trump just goes to Ohio, turns it all around on them. It shows how out of touch they are. But by the way, because Biden goes over to a war that is losing popular support here in America. And their response to the Trump thing was great. There's a bunch of clips. We don't have enough time to play all of them, but this was one that I thought was particularly interesting on CNN, where this is, by the way, just a CNN analyst breaking down. So let's check out this clip.
Russian aggression and to try to undercut that under the auspices of America First and photo ops at McDonald's passing out branded water isn't a sufficient response. They want to draw the contrast, but it's a false contrast. It's a false choice.
As you said, it's personal for you. Your family is from there, and you bring great perspective, John. Thank you. Let's see if there's some action.
The criticizing Biden.
He's just fear. What a false choice. This idea of criticizing Biden because this America first, you go there. It's a total false choice. He also mentions in there that the priority, obviously, is Ukraine. That's what really matters. It's not Ohio. You're like, look, it's not a false choice. Like, resources are finite, right? Every bit of resources that we pour into Ukraine are resources not being poured into our country now. That's just factually the case. It's not a false choice at all. Like, that money is going somewhere, or that's like, I don't know, like, try this in your personal life. If your wife's like, whatever, she's like, did you just gamble away $100,000 when we have bills that are past due? And you go, that's a false choice. It's not a choice between me gambling $100,000 or this. We can do both. It's like, no, it's actually, that's a choice. It's, so just ridiculous, but you can just see how angry it makes him. That of course, this is a winning hand that Trump is playing. Like, there's a mushroom cloud of toxic chemicals hanging over an American city, and you're going to a foreign country to worry about their problems before you've come here.